Hey everyone, JMC27 here from ETW. Those that do watch this know me probably as your commish as well in different leagues. I'm trying out some new technology for mine and the E2W team's casts in the future. So I figured I'd give this a whirl today and see how it goes. So what I'm going to go over today, as you can see on the screen, is the Revival League 2026 early power rankings. So you can also see what behind me, what we're all competing for, a little trophy right here. So keep that in mind as we're going through these. So these are January rankings, which are irresponsible actually and inaccurate to do at this time, but for the hell of it, something to do today and make a cast. I'm not going to paint. These are not going to be the final rankings at the end of the season. I know there's lots of moves to be made by a lot of you out there, but we got to talk about something. So these rankings are happening now. I'm also, just to be clear, I'm not ranking on last year's performance. I am, or even the team of the future that you may have. This is as we stand of today, and who's going to survive the 2026 chaos that is about to ensue over the next few months after the draft, into the draft, after the preseason, etc. So I'll start from the bottom where hope lives, but likely. Not going to be potentially in 2026, but who knows based on different moves that people make. So I've separated out teams into 2 to 4 tiers. We're going to start with tier 4. So tier 4, you can see here are in the different helmets, rebuilds, or in my humble opinion, directions needed. Where are some of these teams going? What are they doing? You can see the 3 elements that really make up this core group are pick young player builds. So pick heavy, a lot of younger players. You can see specifically people like Mark and Mitch are on that list. Youth swings needed. So what that actually means is younger players on these teams that maybe did or didn't perform last year and could potentially perform again this year. And some of those teams I've signaled out here are like Mamba, Jerry Swallows, wish you would change that name, Jimmy and Dreskula. A lot of players here like MHJ, Matthew Golden, Xavier Worthy, and Tet for Mamba. Young players had good seasons. Tet had a very good season, but other players on that team for Mamba as well that looking to elevate and need those players to really do a lot more this year. And then the third group is aging cores, and I put reset needed. That's a question mark. If it were me, that's probably where I would go. But I put people like Jimbo in that area and Dottie. Guys like Kamara for Dottie and Ramondre, some of those older receivers as well. Might be time to just move and see as much as you can, get as much as you can for them. Jimbo's in a similar situation with Cup and DeAndre Swift and a few others on that team as well. So it'll be really interesting to watch this group and see who goes where. This group could actually control some of the trade market during the season, and especially with some of the players on these teams. And if I'm them, trying to maximize them as much as I can. Ben has already made a move. Beninator's in this league, in this group. Started with a really strong team from one of our former commissions. And it looks as though he's kind of blown that up a bit and based on a recent trade, really looking for some youth swings, hopefully, as well as some picks upcoming. In my opinion, I think there will be a lot of trades amongst this group. Some may be good for them in the now, and some may be good for them in the future. But I can see them doing a lot, and especially with those that are looking to contend. What I'll do through each of these tiers is name a couple of players I'm really excited about, and really hoping or thinking there will be a lot of potential in the future. And for the player calls in this group, I'm going to call out the young rookies so that I expect to hit for a few people. Specifically, Love, I think Mark's on 101. I don't know if he's going to move that or not. I don't know if I would or not in a 24-man league. Love looks like a sure bet, or as close as we're going to get. And while this draft I think is a little soft, I do think there's some really good players. And I would have continued to say is maybe a couple of elite players. So you really have to hit and get a little lucky on landing spots for rookies. But Love seems to be the sure thing no matter where he goes. I do like Lemon. I think that he could be potentially that elite receiver. Really depends on where he goes. I've seen some things saying him going to San Francisco or somewhere like that. That would be amazing. But it will depend. I do think one of the receivers coming out of this class will hit an elite status at some point in time. And then there's also a guy like Mendoza. I'm not as high on Mendoza and his translation to the NFL, but we'll see how that goes as well. So my group of players that I'm really looking at from this tier are really the rookies and seeing how they hit. And then there's a couple other young guys out there like Monongai, who could be something. Scat, who I always worry about with injuries. And then, some of the other players like Xavier Worthy will take a step back up after a kind of a down year, MHJ, etc. So I think those players will be really interesting to watch in this tier. And then whether those players are kept on these teams or moved. For each of the tiers, I'm going to give three quick hot takes. So my first hot take, which Mitch is going to love, I do think that Mitch will not be ranked between 22 and 24 by the end of the season. I think he will get higher. I think that the 102 pick is good. He's got a lot of picks for next year. I can see him making some more moves and slowly adding bits and pieces. He's also got a couple players on that team younger players that could actually come through this year. So I'm really excited to see. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Jimmy is going to make the most trades, and he's still going to leave me baffled by his strategy. When I joined this league, he had a fairly strong team, and I look at his team now, and I think he took a lot of risks on rookies last year. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but I bet there's a lot of moves that he makes, so we'll see where he lands. And a really hot take, which I know Mark is going to love here, but I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say that Mark could actually make a playoff push towards the end of this season. And I think it is because of his massive draft capital he has this year. He's got a couple of picks next year. You add Love to that team. And a couple of guys like Hunter and Burden that could do receiver 2 numbers, as well as some moves that he might make between 5, 6, 7 picks that he has in the first and second round. Mark's pretty clever on the trading, so I think he'll make some moves. And in this league, an elite running back, a good quarterback, and a handful of strong, solid receivers, even if they are receiver 2s, that's going to get you close to the playoffs. So that's my take there on tier 3. Tier 2. Sorry. Moving on to tier 3. You'll see my hot takes on the right hand side. I couldn't put my hot takes on the last screen because there were so many helmets there, but I'm going to go through the tier 3 here, and what really defines this tier in the red circle you can see, really interesting. I think this group can finish anywhere from 5th to 15th. And I know a couple of people in this group would say I'm definitely not going to be finishing 15th, but you never know with injuries. Some guys being phased out based on age, who knows where that all goes. But another area I see is they've got a lot of strong cores here, but some roster holes. And I'll use Evan as an example, EV253, good team overall. Is Young going to be any good next year? Is he going to get benched again? The running back situation, he's got Hall, who if he stays at the Jets, what is that going to look like? And I love Breece Hall, but then, K9, where's he going to be? And then Neighbors, how he bounces back from that injury, pretty significant injury that he had last year at his age. Uke, I don't even know if Uke's going to be in the league next year. So, and then older guys at tight end in Henry and Fryer, and then likely who knows what's going to happen in Baltimore at the moment with the tight end situation, and they just re-signed Andrews. So good team overall, but some holes and some real uncertainty. And then a lot of these teams teams really have some running back uncertainty. And as I said in my last cast with Mark, I think running backs are making a real push this year, and last year, and into this year, as far as kind of taking over that receiver. I felt dominance a few years ago, just in my humble opinion. And these teams, some of these teams, I don't know how to say his name, Keelich, and a few others are lacking sort of running back depth. Baby Pluto as well, just Hendo on his team. Keelich has Warren and then not much else left there. So that running back uncertainty could be challenging. And then a lot of these teams are relying on that bounce back dependency. Honey Dijon has JJ and BTJ, two of my favorite players, but had poor years last year. So what is that going to look like? Justin, you've got Bucky, who came back towards the end of the season, obviously after the injury. You've got Devonta Smith, and I think those guys could have big years potentially. So looking for these bounce back players, and they're really depending on some of them as well if they don't move them. So my sleeper player call-outs are not really sleeper players, but what I will say out of this group is that I do think those running backs I did name are going to be breakout running backs. I think Genty, Bucky, and Breece Hall, they may not be RB1 to 3, but they're going to be getting close to that top 5 this year. And while I did call out Hall in the situation there in New York, I think there's a potential for things to turn. He's just too good, and he could also get traded. So those are really my top sort of players that I'm looking at in this group. And I know I spoke about younger players in love in the last one. And as you can see, running backs are a really big importance to me this year. Quick 3 hot takes. MSC 17, who just joined the league. I don't think she's going to be making the playoffs or anything this year, but I do think she's going to have the biggest turnaround. Last year, I think she was in 21st place. She took over for Scoop, and I thought that was actually a really solid team overall. She's made a couple of interesting moves, and I do see her jumping from 21 quite high. May not be in the playoff territory, but I do think that she'll have the biggest turnaround from a team this year. Justin, I think could be a sneaky playoff pick at this point. He's got Bucky Irving. He added Smith just recently. He's got Goff, who's solid enough. And I know him well enough to know he's going to make a couple more moves before this season gets kicked off. And now that he's really invested into this 24-man league, because I'm not into the Revival League. I'm not sure if he was 100% when he joined, but he is now, I can tell. And then here's a real big hot take, and I hate saying this because I also know him well, but I actually think that Honey Dijon, if he makes a few moves that I think he could make with his youth, his picks, and his upside surge that he has on some of these players, and I do see JJ and BTJ bouncing back. I already mentioned Genty and his ability to potentially this year to jump up in the RB rankings. I think that he could actually make a play at the semifinals if he makes a couple of really solid moves. So, moving on to Tier 2. As you can see, the tiers are getting smaller. So, this tier I'm going to call dangerous, but flawed. And I think there's some really telling flaws within these teams that could end up hurting or not hurting them. For a couple of these teams, it did hurt them this year, and maybe it won't. It did hurt them last year, maybe it won't this year. But this tier is defined, in my opinion, these are legit contenders. I see these guys as really in the playoffs or very close to and really being able to make a run if everything goes well. But they all have a key structural flaw, in my opinion. So aging core risks. And I hate calling out individuals, but Fly Guy, his team it's a strong team. But when you look at some of those older players, like a Barkley, like Adams, and some of the others that he does have currently, I think Kelsey's still on there, and Ingram. I'm not sure if either of them are playing this year. So he's got some structural flaws, obviously, to overcome with some of those really strong players that he does have. So I see that as being a key concern for him. Quarterback concerns. Jupiter made a trade recently to get a quarterback. He made the playoffs last year and didn't even have a quarterback. I know he got a little bit of a grill for that trade, and yours truly as well. My apologies. However, I think Jupiter found last year a quarterback was a key concern for him. Daniel Lee took over for Fergie. Lamar was out all last year. I would expect him to be 100% this year and go, but that is a concern after that injury, and his injury history for Lamar. You got guys like Funny Fly Guy, who's got some older quarterbacks, a younger quarterback, and so we'll see how that kind of pans out for him. And then E. Phillips is riding with Stroud at the moment. We'll see if that ends up being the case after his poor playoff performance. But and then inconsistency. These are teams that have good teams, but some inconsistent players on these teams. So they'll need some consistency out of those guys to be able to make it happen this year and make that dangerous run. Couple player call. And I hate doing this again, but I'm not concentrating specifically on a running back. I'm concentrating a little bit more on a team here. I do believe Hampton becomes elite. I think with McDaniel coming to Miami, I think that's still on the cards. I know he's still interviewing potentially. I think he pulled out of everything. It changes every day, it seems. But McDaniel to that offense with Herbert, I honestly believe that Hampton could be an elite player this year. I think he was this year until he faced some injuries, but he came back. He looked pretty good, but that team was so banged up on the offensive line, so I think they're going to correct that. And I'll add to that as well is Ladd. I don't think Ladd is going to be a top 10 receiver, but I think he'll be scratching at that door, and I think that bounce back will be a big one for him as well. So a couple of players there on the one team, the Chargers, that I think are going to have bounce back years. A couple of quick hot takes. E. Phillips has the potential to decide to rebuild at any point, and his bad luck last year probably really pissed him off. He's got some aging receivers. So while I think Hampton and Warren are really great players and could be really key for his team and the future of his team, his future very quickly may end up not being this year. So I know that's probably a decision he's thinking about, whether he's going to pull that trigger or not. But without any picks for the next few years, he's got to be looking at that and thinking about how he can kind of maximize his best, and whether it's this year or next year that his window is. The team, the Funny Fly Guy, I think if this team stays as it is, playoffs could actually become a little bit of a concern, and his playoff window might be shutting. I know Fly Guy does a lot of negotiating and trading, so I'm expecting him to go a little aggressive right now, just considering what he's got and what he can get back for them. I know he does have a high pick this year, but I'm not huge on the draft, so I'm not sure that's going to really influence a lot of youth into that team. But I think that overall, as far as what I've said about Fly Guy as well, I think he just needs to make he could make a little bit of an adjustment on those aging players and get some youth into that team. And then big take here as well, I think Smokey is right back in and he takes his division. I think Ladd bounce back, I already mentioned, is on the cards. Again, not top 10, but I think he scratches that door. I think a guy like Hawk comes back, and Hurts is always going to score points, whether I like that offense or not, and whether I'd invest in anybody in that offense or not. But the tush push is there, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. Plus, he's a running quarterback as well. So I think overall, with Jacobs and Henry and everything else that he has with that team, I see him doing well. But more so than anything is I know Smokey is extremely engaged and has a very strong trade ability. So I see him flipping that roster a little bit as well. All right, and finally, move on to the title contenders. And I think these three, my hot take you can see there, I think one of these three wins again. I'm going to start with the hot take because I think these three teams are fairly obvious. But as of today, I think one of these wins 2026. I would love to say that to be me and do three in a row, but I think winning 3 in a row is somewhat impossible. I was really happy to get back to back. I don't know if I've ever seen a 3-time champion in a row. So I'm expecting or anticipating I might be passing on that crown this year, and that trophy behind me might be going somewhere else in the mail. But what defines this tier is, proven production. If you look at RB 1 through 5, receiver 1 through 5, these teams have almost all of them. And like JSN, Puka, you've got Aman, CD Lamb. So really, really strong receiving cores as well as even youth. Ibuka, our summer has CD's no slouch and young. Garrett Wilson, I forgot about there, is also a huge fan of Garrett Wilson. I think that will be great for Wolverines with him back. He was missing him last year, and who knows if he had him, what would have happened. And then you look at some of the RBs in this group as well, in Gibbs, Bijan, CMC, if Asamoah keeps him, and knowing Asamoah, he probably will try and flip him. But those are some of the proven production makes this group the title contenders. Bowers and McBride are the tight end 1-2 as well, which I wish I had one of, but I do not. And then also combined with that, though, this group also has some younger stars. Bijan and Gibbs, I mentioned already, aren't old. Puka, JSN are not older players. Still a lot of life left in those guys, and I see them kind of continuing on for many years. So that young youth to help with that proven production, which means that they have not only the ability to win in future years, but also structural depth in their teams. I have 3 running backs in Gibbs, Judkins, and Harvey. If one of them doesn't perform, at least I think the other 2 should at least get me across the line. So a lot of flexibility and and depth for the teams. What that also provides is trade flexibility. These 3 teams have a lot of ability to make moves, as I did at the end of the season. I think that trade I made, a couple of trades I made at the end of the season, got me over the line. I could see the writing on the wall for a few of the players I let go. I didn't want to let them go for future years, but I had to make that move kind of in a redraft mindset to win this year or last year. So a lot of flexibility in the trade market for these 3 teams. Couple of the player calls, I mentioned a bunch of players there, but I think all 3 of these teams will hold RB1, receiver 1, tight end 1, and I think those players will be Puka, Bijan, and Bowers. So that is the gist of everything there as far as our overall rankings. This is coming from the document that I've shared with everyone already, but you can see what I've basically mentioned and what I kind of mentioned in the last cast I did with Mark. 2026 to me season, big picture. It's very early, obviously, but some youth cores are going to start making a play and with those players under 25, especially really starting to determine some success in this league for now and in the future, but also, more so this year. RB depth and quality can be seen throughout the higher tiers, and I think that's going to be extremely important as not just this league, but as fantasy football over the next few years as well. Rebuilds are banking on these 26 picks, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say they may live to regret. I don't think this draft is great. This draft class is great. I think it's good. I think there's good players, but there's not the elite players that there might be or has been in previous drafts. So I don't want to say it's a terrible draft. I just think the quality is lower. Tier 2 is fragile with some age injuries and some recent poor form. I do look at Tier 3 as being very dangerous, and a lot of those guys, managers in that tier, could actually move up to Tier 2 or even Tier 1 by the end of this season. Final line that I'll put out there. I'll be wrong about some of this, maybe all of it, and where these teams fall, because I know there's a lot of moves to be made, and especially in this league where we're very active and there's a lot of trading happening. But I don't think I'll be wrong about seeing a bit of a shift in this league, and some of those teams that have come in recently over the last year or two, or those managers that have come in over the last year or two, really high-level managers that I know in other leagues. I think that over the next few years we're going to see a real change of the guard as that title contender in that Tier 2 area. All right, so that is me. Thanks, everyone, for listening, if you do end up listening, and good luck. You'll hear from us from the ETW squad soon.